from the News Channel 5 network. This is SportsLine.
All right, welcome to SportsLine, everybody. John Burton with you until the top of the hour. Boy, do we have a show for you. Coming up this hour, we're going to preview the big Game 7 between the Nashville Predators and the Anaheim Ducks, which starts in about an hour from Anaheim. One game, winner take all. We're going to have Justin Bradford from Penalty Box Radio, who covers the Nashville Predators. He will be on next segment to preview that game. We're also going to have representatives for the 17th annual Nashville St. Jude Rock and Roll Marathon, which is coming up this weekend. A huge event. What a week we have going on here in Nashville on the sports scene. And of course, tomorrow night is the NFL Draft. The Tennessee Titans currently sitting in the 15th spot, but that could change. And for more on that, we bring in my man from News Channel 5 Sports, live from Chicago, Illinois' own Steve Lehman, who's covering the NFL Draft for us. Steve, how are you, my man?
JB, how are you, my friend? It is the Windy City is living up to its nickname today. It is gross, to be completely honest. It is blustery, it is pouring, and last I checked, it felt like it was 35 degrees. So I'm frankly envious of you being in a warm studio right now.
Yeah, it was 86 degrees today outside, so another reason to be jealous. All right, Steve, let's get right to it. You talked to a number of NFL draft analysts today. What are they saying about what the Titans might do and, more importantly, what they should do tomorrow in the draft?
I think the consensus, JB, is the Titans should do everything possible to build around and protect Marcus Mariota. Obviously, last year, he was the draft for them. They got the face of the future moving forward by getting a franchise quarterback in Mariota. And so now you've got to do things to build a team around him. I think what they say they could do in the first round is go after that offensive line position, specifically a tackle, to bolster that offensive line and protect him. Make sure he stays upright. Remember, he had some injury issues last year where he wasn't able to play. Didn't play the last couple games of the season. And that you want to make sure never happens again. So they want to bolster that offensive line. I think the interesting thing is, for a long time, people thought it was going to be left tackle, JB. It'd be Laramie Tunsil if they were at number 1, or Ronnie Stanley if they moved down a little bit. The more and more I talk to people and you think about things, Taylor Lewan is the left tackle of this football team. They drafted him 10th overall 2 years ago to be just that. And when you talk to people around the Titans, he's a left-handed guy that when they put him on the right side in his initial training camp when Michael Roos was still in the fold, he didn't love playing on the right side. So I think the thought that you can move him to the right side is maybe a tough sell within the locker room to Taylor Lewan. So I think Lewan is the left tackle for this team, and if they go with a tackle in the first round, the more likely selections to me than Tunsil or Stanley are Taylor Decker from Ohio State, and probably the best fit would be Jack Conklin from Michigan State. Both of those guys are maulers in the run game. They would be comfortable, specifically Conklin, on the right side right away. And I think if the Titans are going to go offensive line and tackle, that's where they go in round 1. And you may not have to move up very much to get either of those guys. So if you're talking about trading back up to go get a Tunsil or somebody like that, you're going to have to unload a lot of those assets you just gained to move up to get them. If you're going for Conklin or Decker especially, I don't think you have to give up nearly as much.
Steve Lehman is our guest. He joins us live from Chicago, side of the NFL Draft, which gets underway tomorrow. And I think it's important for folks to remember, protecting Mariota is important, but you also just traded for a stud running back, potentially, in DeMarco Murray. You got to get that run game going. That helps protect the quarterback as well. Another reason why one of these offensive tackles might be a good fit.
Yeah, and several guys said that today. You've got a running back now that takes some pressure off of Mariota. It's not just going to be a pass-first offense, which is really what we've seen the last couple of years. So the DeMarco Murray pickup is big and gives the Titans some flexibility. But you're right. That's the other thing to me that's a selling point for both Conklin and Decker is truly they are described as maulers in the run game. And I can't imagine anything you would describe an offensive lineman better at.
Right.
Being able to maul people in the running game. So I think that's big. And then the other thing I think that they're going to want to look into at some point, I don't know if it's at pick 15, but then with all the picks they have on Friday night, JB, is wide receiver. Because you're also looking to get more weapons around Mariota. So now you've got DeMarco Murray in the backfield. Where's the playmaker at wide receiver? Can you get a Laquan Treadwell? Can you get a Josh Dotson? Corey Coleman, maybe if he slides a little bit. Can you get a wide receiver that you really covet that you think can be a playmaker to bolster that crew as well?
Do you maybe move up and try to make a move for Laquan Treadwell, Steve? I understand the Browns at 8 are not in love with sitting at 8. They'd be willing possibly to trade out of that spot. They're looking for dance partners there. Is it too much of a, I don't want to say a risk, but too much of a move to maybe try to move into that top spot and make a move for a Laquan Treadwell, excuse me.
I'm not saying that it wouldn't happen. The way I look at it right now, though, JB, with both of the positions we just talked about, tackle and wide receiver, I think they're both so good, have enough players that are quality that you hear John Robinson say this a lot. When he weighs in, do you trade? Do you try to move up? Who you select at a certain pick when you have another pick coming up? It's all about, if you don't take that guy right there, can you get him or someone else comparable later on?
Right.
Or do you have to take him right there? I think both with the tackle position, with those 4 guys we talked about, and the wide receiver with the list of guys, Dotson, Coleman, Treadwell, Sterling Shepard, Will Fuller, I think there's depth at both of those positions. So to me, if I'm John Robinson and I'm in that room, I'm not trading up to get one of those guys, because I think you can get one of those guys at 15 and maybe one of those receiver guys down at 33
right
Friday. So to me, those are your choices for your first 2 picks. I stay where I am and take the abundance of those picks to fill even more holes.
Now, you did speak with a number of those offensive tackles today. Very exciting time for them, as same as the case with all the other potential draft picks. What did you get from guys like Conklin and Tunsil when you spoke to them? They all seem pretty excited not only to be drafted, but they seem like they would love to come to Tennessee and help protect Marcus Mariota and help open up holes for DeMarco Murray.
Yeah, specifically Conklin. I said, hey, if the mock draft composite is correct, you're going to be a Tennessee Titan. How do you feel about that? And he said, I feel great. Sounds good to me. I've talked with them a lot, and I like what they want to do. And he reiterated what you just said, that this is a Titans team that wants to become more physical. They want to be better in the run game. Mm-hmm. And he thinks that he fits in very well doing that. And he's also okay for a guy who was a stud in college and is a top prospect in the draft. He's completely comfortable with the idea that he would be the right tackle of this team with Taylor Lewan on the left side. So to me, I feel like that's a great marriage. I got the impression from Tunsil that, while he certainly would love to go to Tennessee, now that they're down at 15, he's sort of forgetting about them.
Right.
He thinks he's going in the top 5 picks, and until Tennessee proves that they're trading back up, they're sort of off of his radar. But you get the sense that the Titans have done their due diligence. I did not talk to a guy today, other than Corey Coleman of Baylor, who told me that he wouldn't tell me any team that he met with, that said that he didn't meet with the Titans. So I think John Robinson and this group has turned over every stone multiple times, gone on lots of visits, brought in a lot of guys for workouts, and they're very prepared to go into the draft tomorrow night.
Yeah, you make a good point. If Laramie Tunsil's still sitting there at 15, something's probably wrong. Steve Lehman from Chicago is our guest. He's joining us live from Chicago. NFL draft begins tomorrow. As we said, the Titans currently sitting with the number 15 pick. We'll see if there's any movement between now and tomorrow night. Certainly an exciting time. All right, that's the Titans side of things. You also spoke with Jalen Ramsey today. I'm sure that was an enjoyable experience. The young man from Brentwood Academy, of course, played his college ball at Florida State. One of the most talked about players in this year's draft. He could go from anywhere, looks like from 3 to maybe 6 or 7, maybe 8. He's definitely going to be a top 10 pick, and he looks like he's a can't-miss project. He's got all the intangibles. How excited is that young man as he gets ready to find out where he's going for his NFL career?
Well, first off, he's a fantastic interview. So if the Titans can by chance trade up and select him, the hometown kid, I, as a storyteller, am all for that because he would make our lives so much easier every day walking into that locker room. But he considers it a dream come true, JB. He said he has spent his entire life dreaming of the moment in the green room, surrounded by his family, and having the opportunity to get selected and walk across that stage and shake the commissioner's hand. And here it is, the eve of the NFL draft, where that's all going to happen. And he lived it up today at the Play 60 event with the young kids. And, I mean, he is just enjoying the moment right now. But he also told me that as soon as he gets drafted, that's when the real work begins. He's considered the best cornerback in this draft. He might be the best safety in this draft if somebody wanted him to play there. And he says he embraces that versatility. He believes he's a cornerback right now, but he understands that somebody might see great value in him playing safety, and the versatility and the fact that a few years from now somebody thinks he doesn't fit at cornerback anymore, they can slide him to safety and still feel like he's a very good player. All of that gives him great value. He believes he's the best prospect in this draft. It should have been number 1 overall, and told me today, John, that he thought if the Titans stayed at number 1, he was going to be their pick. He thought that they were really narrowing it down, and he believed at the end of the day they were going to take him. He was surprised, or as surprised as all of us were, when they struck the deal to trade away the number 1 pick a couple weeks before the draft.
Right.
Just sort of said, man, I guess I'm going to have to represent the 615 someplace other than Nashville.
Right.
But I get the feeling, while he's not exactly holding out hope for it, I think he'd be pretty happy like the rest of us if the Titans decide to trade back up and maybe could get him somewhere in the top 10.
Steve, you're in Chicago to cover the draft. Second year it's been in Chicago. Second year you've been there representing us, covering it, and doing a great job as usual. But I want to get your thoughts on what the NFL draft has become. You know, it really is the off-season Super Bowl in terms of hype, in terms of coverage. You know, I'm old enough to remember when it was just just a bunch of guys sitting in a room, handing out cards. And now it is such a big event. You mentioned the Play 60 event today with all the prospects, and they built the draft town and all these things. Have you taken a moment to think about what this event has become over the years? It's on Thursday night primetime now. They stretch it out over 3 days rather. I mean, it's really become an incredible event for the NFL.
It's the off-season Super Bowl, JB. That's what it is. I mean, everybody tunes into this. This is how you win the off-season, the minds of your fan base, depending on what you do on these 3 days. This is how you build a winning team for the future. And talking to Roger Goodell today, as he did his annual NFL Draft Week media event this afternoon, he probably answered 15 questions, I'd guess, in this thing. I bet 7 of them were about the draft and possible future locations. And so here's what's happened. It's become a massive event. It's been a massive event for a few years. But last year when it came to Chicago, it took on a life of its own.
Yeah.
Because Chicago really embraced it. The theater experience is great. But then Draft Town, what they did across the street in Grant Park, they had 250,000 people go through there.
Wow.
3 days last weekend. And you had the kind of the interactive experience with the fans on Saturday. No longer it was just pictures of Jets fans falling asleep in the balcony at Radio City Music Hall. It was a real experience, and I think the NFL loved that. And so it raised the bar for what you have to do to host this, to have the interactive activities and the spectacle outside of the theater. And so now other cities are trying to put together their bids and figure it out. And I heard from Philadelphia today.
Yep.
And Vegas and several other places that were saying, hey, is the NFL draft coming here? What's the status? And I can tell you this much. The NFL draft and the NFL wants to move the draft from city to city. They want it to be a moving event, kind of like the Super Bowl is. But Chicago has raised the bar, and for that reason, it's definitely coming back here sometime soon, because the NFL has been in love with the experience that they've had here through 2 years.
Yeah, I can just imagine Roger Goodell walking up to the podium in Philadelphia. What a reception he would get if the draft is there. Get you out of here on this. Speaking of Roger Goodell, you did report today that there are still some concerns about the Titans' ownership structure amongst Goodell and the rest of the NFL. If you can, shed some light on that.
Yeah, well, I was in the scrum of about 15 questions about Goodell, and I asked him exactly that. I said, are you guys continuing to work with the Titans ownership, and how satisfied is the league in their progress to meet the guidelines for the ownership structure. And he basically said, we're not. We don't believe the Titans meet our ownership criteria at this point. We've had continuing dialogue with them and many discussions, but at this point, none of it has satisfied our finance committee or the rules that we have for ownership. And I tried to get back with what do they have to do to satisfy it, and he just said they have to be in compliance with our ownership rules, which all 32 teams need to be, and they aren't at this point. And so here's the bottom line. I've had several people ask me about this. The problem comes in line with the succession plan after Bud Adams died 2.5 years ago. He put the Titans into a trust and was evenly split amongst the families of his 3 children, Amy Adams Strunk, Susie Adams Smith, and then his late son's family. And so they all have 33.3%. The 2 sisters have the full amount, and then the other third is split amongst 3 people.
Gotcha.
The family has made Amy Adams Strunk the controlling owner. That's what they've said, and they believe that that satisfies the NFL's requirement that there is one voting owner that controls everything that's going on. The NFL says they don't believe that can possibly be the case if 2 people in the family and 3 parts of the family have the exact same amount of ownership stake.
Right.
So what they're saying is Amy Adams Strunk is not the majority owner of the team, therefore she can't be the controlling owner at our meetings, and it's not in compliance with what we're doing, and it wouldn't be legally binding if anything ever seriously happened, and therefore you have to change the structure. I also think there's this is not Roger Goodell talking, but I've heard from sources that there's kind of a facet of NFL ownership that would love to see kind of a stale ownership family that hasn't done a great job of marketing this team or making money in Nashville, which is the fastest growing city in the country. They would love to see this team sold, and so they're trying to make it difficult for them to come in line with the policies, because they hope basically the Adams family throws their hands up, decides to sell it, and they can bring in one of their buddies essentially to own the team. So this is a long ways from over, John, and I think the Titans believe they're in lockstep and they're doing everything they need to do, and they want to hold on to this team. The Adams family wants the Titans, and they want them in Nashville, but we'll see if they can come to an agreement or if this thing goes to court or the NFL acquiesces at some point. But I don't think this story is going away.
Steve, great job. Go get yourself a nice dinner. Say hi to your dad for me. Great reporting today. We look forward to your reports tomorrow as well at day 1 of the NFL draft.
All right, bud. Thanks.
All right, Steve Lehman joining us. Wow, a lot going on with the Titans ownership situation that Bears looking into in the days ahead. All right, we'll come back and take a break. Time to preview Game 7, Predators and Ducks. Justin Bradford from Penalty Box Radio. He will join us. We'll get a preview of the big game tonight. And then coming up later, we'll talk about this weekend's marathon. A lot to get to. Stay with us.